Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining Workout Wednesday. And we are talking about goal setting that works today. So many times we tackle goal setting, and quite frankly, we do a terrible job at it for a variety of reasons. I'm not going to go and share a bunch of slides right now. We're going to kind of verbally walk through some of these components. I am going to share a link to some resources that you can have at your disposal to download. But for now, what we want to talk about and where we want our brains to go in thinking about goal setting are three key components. We want to understand and begin with the end in mind. So the exercise I'd like you to think about right now, this is a thinking, reflecting exercise, is at the end of 2025. December 31st of 2025, when you put your head on the pillow, what is going to make you breathe a sigh of relief in what you've accomplished? Close your eyes for a minute and really think about that. Now think about, what does it look like to add some specifics around that? So the framework we're going after is identify, specify, testify. So a lot of times we don't identify effective goals. If we're in sales, maybe it's a revenue target. If we're in marketing, maybe it's a leads or impression target. Okay. I encourage you through the identification process to think bigger. For those of you that are part of our Revenue by Design executive groups, we talked about this in 2024. All of us, myself included, we were thinking too tactically and too in the weeds. So regardless if you are an executive, you own a business, you're part of a team, part of setting effective goals is thinking a little bit bigger, thinking a little bit more broadly at the end of the day. And so when we think about that, that's why I start with a question of identify, or the aspect of identify, and then think about, as of December 31st, 2025, where do you want to be? So if you are within the sound of my voice, and maybe you're going for a walk, maybe you're doing a few other things, maybe you're going to tune in later, maybe you're sitting there with pen and paper, digital or analog. Really think about that. What does that look like at the end of the day for you at the end of the year? Is it, for me, my daughter is going to be driving somewhat, right? Yeah, she'll be driving. I can adjust my schedule. I can tackle and do different things given the freedom, not freedom, but the absence of components that took time. So I have more time as a poker chip that I can place on certain bets at the end of the day. Not to say that I'll miss my daughter and our time in the car, and I've shared that with her. We're going into this next evolution though. So for you, is that, what are some of those big things? For me is getting a handle on some marketing motions, because people like what I share from a coaching and training and mindset perspective. Okay, so I've identified that goal. I've also identified that we're in our decade of destiny and we're looking to equip, empower, and encourage 1 million revenue professionals to lead and sell with soul. Now we want to get specific. So what is that big mamma jamma at the end of 2025? You've identified 2 or 3 components that in your life, if they were there, you would feel the sense of relief, like I really did it. Now we want to start getting really specific. So if you are hearing and hearing me, get down to your number 2 on your piece of paper. So 1 is identify, 2 is test, 2 is specify. Get really specific, because this is what trips us up. And so everybody's done SMART goal setting and stuff. We're just not that good at goal setting. And SMART goals are great, but again, we lack sometimes some substance within those. So what does that look like to get really specific with these goals? So if your goal is to increase impressions, leads, conversion, whatever, how many, by when, who needs to be involved? So I encourage you, when you're thinking about some of these things, identify number one, specify number two. And yes, we've all, for the most part, heard of SMART goals, but I encourage you actually to think about it from the who, what, how, when, where, and why. So if you're taking notes, under number two, specify the WH questions with an H thrown in. Who, what, how, when, where, and why. That will keep us from getting really heads down on thinking if it's going to be, it's up to me, because life is better when we're working together. That's not always easy. I think we can all grow in that area, but at the end of the day, being able to think about really specifically, what are the steps I need to take, by when, with who, and how are we going to get there? If we identify and specify those components, we're going to be able to better communicate for comprehension. The third thing, as we're developing our goals, is to think about testify. I am a recovering people pleaser, and I will overcompensate all day long and twice on Sunday, and I'm a control freak. So with that is, I want to give a little bit of context around the word testify. Testify simply means to state the facts. So sometimes what stops us from setting good goals is, quite frankly, being able to set effective boundaries. Because what stops us from having effective boundaries is maybe we're afraid we're going to make somebody mad, or we're not sure of the question to ask, or whatever the case may be. We have some anxiety around boundary setting. The more we can get focused on identifying, specifying, and testifying, it will help bleed out a little bit of that emotion. It will help us craft the right questions to ask people, and it will help keep us on a path. So a lot of times that's what we want to think about at the end of the day. So once we declare, hey, our goal, revenue by design, our mission, our purpose right now is to equip, empower, and encourage 1 million revenue professionals in the next 10 years as our Decade of Destiny initiative. Who wants to be involved? Great. So we're putting on some events. Now we're identifying specific components we're doing to push this initiative forward. So we're doing events. We're doing a virtual event, and we're doing an in-person event in June in Phoenix. We're doing shows like Workout Wednesday. We're doing our show like Rev Shots. So now we're specifying around some of these things. One of my goals is to get better at promoting some of these things. I'm not that great at it. So I need to put those pieces in place. So the question I have for you is, what have you identified are the big rocks for you to move, if we had to use the Covey language, and then really getting specific around what that looks like, and then start testifying. I give what we're doing as an example. It should roll that effortlessly off your tongue. For those of you that are in RevOps, how many times have we had the conversation of numbers, 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 numbers? And then we've got other parts of our team that are going, yeah, but that just doesn't feel right. And I'm not really sure. And that's not right. Again, we want to make sure as we are specifying, we're following that who, what, how, when, where, and why formula that gives us the opportunity to say, let's think about our stage gates. Let's think about our sales stages and how we're entering and exiting. And here's the benefit of it. Some of you might be going, Dionne, that's a lot of work. You know what else is a lot of work? Not doing this and having the same problems December 31st of 2025 that you have today. Because we didn't slow down to speed up, and we didn't slow down to think through what does it look like to get everybody on the same page. It is not easy. I get it. And tomorrow we have actually a workshop session. I'll put the link for people to register in, that we're going to address how do we have those difficult conversations that are actually really important to move forward. Conflict isn't bad. Unresolved conflict is. So that's what we want to keep in mind as we think about goal setting that works at the end of the day. It's imperative that we think about our goals as stakes in the ground. Because if we don't, what happens is we're just floating along and people are showing up to work and they don't have purpose. For those of you that are hiring right now, and those of you that have teams right now, all the data and research out there is telling us people and teams want purpose. They want to engage in meaningful work. Speeds and feeds have never cut it. We don't live in that world anymore. We don't live in the utilitarian world. We live in a world where people want to be doing meaningful work, and they want to know what they're doing is connected to something bigger than what they're doing. And quite frankly, what they're not saying is bigger than themselves. So in conclusion, this has been a short session on purpose. Is as you think about goal setting that works, I will send out a link to download the Revenue by Design annual plan. And then I will also put the link to register for our goal setting workshop tomorrow. So if you're looking to connect with some peers, actually go through a goal setting workshop, you can join us tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific. I'll put the link in the comments here. As you think about setting your goals, I want you to think about identify, specify, and testify. Identify the big, hairy, audacious goals that if you accomplish that, you're going to be like, ooh, that was a good one. Then you want to get really specific. Then you want to testify. So make sure you're tuning in for our other Workout Wednesday shows. Next week, we have Cy from Hyperbound coming. So for those of you that are in the enablement space, as well as leaders, maybe you don't have an enablement team, the Hyperbound platform is something you should definitely all take a look at. It is removing all the excuses of why our revenue teams can't practice. So you're going to want to tune in for that one for sure. Make sure if you're interested to actually kind of workshop this out tomorrow. We've got a really great workshop that we're doing tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific. Again, I'll put the link in there. And I look forward to seeing you on future shows. Thanks so much for tuning in.